I want you to imagine the saddest movie you have ever watched. And if you have seen the movie that I'm talking about, today, this is probably one that you would consider to be one of the saddest movies you've ever watched. The movie that I'm talking about is called Grave of the Fireflies. And it details there's no other way to say it. It details the events leading up to the deaths of two of the main characters. Those characters' names are uh, do, 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 Seita and Setsuko. So basically, the first scene of the film is this sort of um, kind of domestic scene where the mom is talking to her children, and you hear a air raid siren because this is Kobe and it's March of 1945. And if you don't know what happens in Kobe in March of 1945, there was an air raid, and it was the Americans were bombing incendiary devices on the city, and they destroyed about 41% of the city. And then they came back a few weeks later and destroyed 51 of the percent of the remaining city. So basically, there's like this domestic scene. There's like this 14-year-old boy and this 4 or 5-year-old girl. They're talking to their mother. They hear the air raid, and the mom is like, "Okay, go to the shelter." And the boy is waiting a little bit because he wants to take a picture of his dad. So he takes a picture of his dad, and so he's tying up his shoes, and he's taking a little bit too long of a time to do it. And when he goes outside with his sister, who's he's carrying on his back, he can see the American bombers that are going, and they drop these little. They look so small, but basically they're like incendiary devices, right? So they land on a house and they land in the street, and one's landing in the street and it's just burning a little, and the boy is like, "Oh, yeah." You can tell he doesn't say this, but you can tell he's thinking, "Oh, that's not so bad." And then he looks up, and the whole street is on fire because all of these houses are made out of wood. So he can't make it to the shelter in time, so he goes and he finds near this uh, river, there's like a culvert that he and his sister can hide in. It's like a bomb shelter, but it's not really a bomb shelter. It's more like just a concrete little tunnel thing. So he finds that, and there's just these devastating scenes of destruction as the city burns to the ground. And this film is a Studio Ghibli or however you pronounce it film. And that studio was founded by two directors, Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata. And I think the first one is more famous now, but this film is directed by the second one. So the artistic style is a little bit different, but the backgrounds and the cityscape landscapes as it's burning down are the same kind of like really, really beautiful, but horrifying at the same time. So then the two kids are like wandering around, and a messenger from the government goes to the devastated areas and says, "Please go to this school for first aid." So the boy thinks that his mom will be there. So they go there and they find the mom, and this is all like within the first 5 minutes of the movie. So they find the mom, and the mom she's been horribly burnt because she had like a heart condition, so she couldn't run away very quickly. She's been horribly burnt, and she lasts maybe 20 minutes and then she dies. And so the boy watches his mom being taken away in a hearse, basically, to be buried, but he lies to his sister that she's in the hospital and they'll see her eventually. Um, they then go to an aunt of theirs, and it seems to be like the sister of their dad. And in the beginning, she's really sympathetic, but the boy is not really doing anything. He's just spending time with his sister. So he's not going to school. And she keeps on saying that he should help the war effort. But by this time, her husband basically says the war is completely lost. Like, we're losing. It's only a matter of time before it ends. But she's like, oh, you should help the war effort. And then she kind of begrudges them food. And so they are starting to starve to death in this house. And so the aunt says, oh, maybe you should sell your mom's kimonos. They do that and they buy rice. And it kind of makes sense, but you can see from the boy's perspective that he sells rice. He sells these kimonos to get rice for him and his sister, and everyone in that household is eating an equal share. So from the aunt's perspective, it's like, you are in this house, I'm gonna feed you, but we all need to be equal here. But he's like, actually, I got this rice. So then he withdraws some money from his mom's bank account, and he gets like a stove, and he starts to cook his rice separately because they have an argument about that. And he eventually he overhears his aunt complaining about him, and he's like, you know what, we're leaving. I'm gonna be able to survive on my own. And him and his sister go and live in this shelter. And what happens in the movie is that they you have all of these sort of like really sweet scenes between the boy and the girl, and the boy is like being a provider, but ultimately he's failing, and he doesn't realize that he's failing as a provider of food and stuff. So he goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, he's like, what's wrong? The doctor says, she's malnourished, she needs food. And he's like, where am I gonna get food? So he takes out the last bit of money from his mom's account, and he goes to get like better food for them. He gets better food for them. He comes back, and his sister is like completely delirious. She has eaten a marble because she thinks it's food, and she dies, right? And then there's sort of like a nostalgic look back at her life and their time together. And, it's full of these sort of like charming things of her playing, because she's a 4-year-old girl, 5-year-old girl, her sweeping, but then, yeah, then you see these sort of like moments where you're like, why is she doing that? She's 5. So she's like trying to repair some cloth. She's sweeping. And then you see her with like these little mud balls, and she's eating the mud balls, right? And it's in the middle of this nostalgic flashback, but you can see that there were signs that she was starving to death earlier, right? And the boy, because he's 14, he didn't realize that. So that's pretty heavy. In fairness to the director, those characters are shown as dead in the beginning of the movie. So you know that they're not going to survive. And the boy, basically, he kind of loses motivation. He travels around a bit, and uh, he dies in September, right before the Americans arrive to occupy the country. So he starves to death in a train station, and you can see that there are like about five other boys in the same situation in that, and nobody is helping them. They're just like sweeping around them and not doing anything. Yeah. So it's very sad, and yeah, I'm having trouble processing it. It's one of the saddest movies I've ever seen, and I was looking for some information about the film, right, as the film started, and it's like one of the saddest movies. This is the saddest anime ever, and I'm like, oh, great, great. And I think the the film is based on a story, and the name of the man who wrote the story was um, Akiyuki Nosaka. And Akiyuki Nosaka wrote this short story called Grave of the Fireflies, and it's a biographical story about what happened to him and his sister at the end of the war. And he says that the way the sister dies is in the film is exactly how she died in real life. So he went to try and get some food for her, and he came back and she was dead. Um, yeah, so really, really sad. But the thing which doesn't make any sense, and I think that this is where maybe more European perspectives would differ from Japanese perspectives. So in Japan, so the author says that this is a tragedy, right? But it's not a tragedy about the war. It's a tragedy that the boy didn't accept help from other people, that he didn't want to fit into society. So he kind of tried to create the society with his sister and him outside of the Japanese society that was crumbling at the time, and he failed. And the biggest evidence of this is the fact that if he had just gone to his aunt and apologized for his behavior, then he would have had a chance to survive, and his sister would have had a chance to survive. And that may be true, but he was 14 when this happened, and his sister was 4, right? His mom was just burnt to death, and his dad has been absent since the beginning of the war and is probably now at the bottom of the ocean, right? So he doesn't have anybody. And his aunt is this person who is supposed to help and support him. So yeah, so the author said, "Oh, it's not anti-war. It's not an anti-war film." This is one of the clearest anti-war films there is. You know, everything about the film screams anti-war. Um, what the Japanese were doing in other places to have American bombers fly over them and occupy the country, the the film is clearly saying that's not that's not right. You know, the actual firebombing, not right. The way the aunt treats the her niece and nephew, also not right. So yeah, it's a heartbreakingly beautiful film, and one thing I didn't I only have one minor criticism. So the 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 film shows the girl developing this rash, and actually I don't like. it took me a while to notice it, so I don't know when it happens, but I think it may have started actually in the beginning of the movie. So she wasn't getting enough food from the very beginning. So she was developing this rash, which is a sign of malnourishment. And as the movie goes on, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, right? So that part is good, but the actual character design, she's supposed to be this cute little girl, and she doesn't look that cute to me, you know. It's not that she has to be like golden hair and wriglets, just the way the face is drawn doesn't look cute. It doesn't look like a human face, I would say. So that would be my one criticism of this movie. But yeah, it's a heartbreaker. I I think if you like Studio Ghibli films, you will like this one. If you like animated films, you will like this one. But it's so hard. It's really, really heavy. So maybe watch it when you're in a very good place. Don't watch it when you're in a bad place because it will just dig you dig you deeper into that. Okay, what did you think about this? Please leave your comments in the comments section. Like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.